Hi guys, hello everyone. I hope you're all keeping safe. And I know that the last few weeks have been quite tough for everyone. And on that very note, that's why we plan to start COVID talks once again. And of course, the last few weeks has brought up a lot of fear and anxiety amongst us, and this is an attempt to reduce the fear and anxiety. So today we are going to be discussing about what is the treatment for COVID-19, what is life-saving and what is not, and who better than a physician to talk to us about this topic today. And today we have Dr. Siddharth, who is a physician. Well, he's one of the most knowledgeable doctors that I know of, and he's an excellent teacher. He loves teaching, and he is a role model for a lot of his students. And also, he's a proud brother. His sister recently started this app, I'm sure most of you have heard of. It's called hyderabadcovidresources.com, which was started by his sister Medha. So let me put Dr. Siddharth, and if you guys have any questions, already we have enough questions, but if you have questions, please put up in the chat box, and any questions unanswered, please DM Dr. Siddharth and he will get back to you. So, hi Dr. Siddharth.
Hey, hi Dr. Advait, how are you?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, great. Yeah. Okay, Siddharth, I've just given a very small introduction about yourself, but please can you tell us
thanks for
more
the
about
kind
yourself?
words.
Yeah, can you please tell us something more about yourself, what you're doing right now?
My name is Dr. Siddharth Kadri. I was a practicing consultant physician in India, Hyderabad for most parts of 2014 to 2020. And in 2020, I relocated to the United Kingdom, and I work as a consultant in acute medicine for the National Health Service, United Kingdom.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, Siddharth, we have a lot of questions, but before going into the questions, one simple thing, personally, I want to ask something.
Yep.
So actually, if you see the last few months, and me, along with everyone, we thought that the COVID curve was declining and everything was almost getting to normal. If not normal, but everything was getting back to normal.
Yes.
We've been going out on vacations, the theaters have been opened, and we've been having get-togethers. It's almost like normal.
Yes.
But suddenly, in the past few weeks, we've seen a surge of the cases, and not just a surge, we've seen that the severity is more, and it's like quite terrible right now.
Yes.
So what is the reason behind it? Is it our fault that we've taken it a little lighter and we've been going out, or is it like inevitable? Was it bound to happen? What exactly is happening? Why?
So this question can be answered in two prongs. So the answer to your question is two. It's both. So firstly, it was bound to happen because throughout the world, the European nations and the American nations were hit first, and then it came to India. So after the first wave ended in the Western world, the first wave started in India. At least when the first wave was in the mid-peak, it started in India.
Correct.
So once the first wave died down, after a while, it died down in India as well.
Yeah.
Then the second wave started in the Western countries, and after that, the cases went up a lot in the Western countries, and it was bound to happen that the second, and it was predicted as well that the second wave would hit India very soon.
So we were
on top of that, yes, to answer the second part of your question, yes, in a way, yes, it's our fault as well that we have actually taken it lightly, perhaps, and that's the reason why there's been a surge of cases, because there is no lockdown, because most of the Western countries, excluding America, had imposed quite a strict lockdown.
Correct.
So because of that strict lockdown, the other governments were able to curtail the virus. Whereas in India, for obvious reasons, for economic constraints and other things, we could not impose a strict lockdown, which is totally understandable on the government's behalf. But I think the people should have been more careful. That is what I personally feel.
Okay, let's hope it's not too late. Let's hope we can, get out of this. Okay, so let's begin. So what is the current COVID scenario in the United Kingdom, and what is the COVID scenario in India right now? So what is it?
So as I told you previously, fortunately, the second wave has almost come to an end in the United Kingdom as of now.
Yeah.
During the second wave, we had around 200 to 250 patients in our hospital alone who were COVID positive and who required hospitalization. But now we have 4 patients at the moment, so it's really died down pretty well, because and that mostly is due to the very, very strict lockdown imposed by the government of UK. Whereas, as we know, in India today, as we speak, I think there are about 8,000 positive as of today.
That's true.
In India, and reportedly there were about 20 deaths, but I'm sure it will be much more than that. So yes, the second wave is hitting its peak in India. I would not say it's reached its peak yet, but definitely it is hitting its peak in India. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, what is a mild COVID infection and how do we treat mild COVID infection? How do you
Yeah.
define a mild COVID infection?
Yeah. So thing is, to be very, very crystal clear about, let's not go and get into detail about how we classify COVID into
Yeah.
various severities, but
Yeah.
on as a layman can understand, it's mild, moderate, and severe. And
Yes.
mild and moderate cases do not require hospitalization, and only
Yeah.
severe cases require hospitalization.
Yeah.
So mild and moderate COVID infections mean that they have symptoms, as it's been advertised all over the TV and social media, like fever, cough, sore throat, dry eyes, conjunctivitis, loose
Correct.
motions,
Yes.
fatigue, and all those things. But these patients will not require any oxygen requirement, or as
Okay.
everyone are nowadays using home pulse oximeters, as
Yes.
long as your home pulse oximetry oxygen saturation is above 94%, you don't have
Okay.
to
You
worry
don't
much.
require any. Yeah.
Yeah, because
That is a mild infection.
COVID-19 will cause severe morbidity and mortality. That is, it can cause severe infection only by affecting the lungs mainly, and
Yes.
which can cause a pneumonia, and the patient will have difficulty to breathe. So then he has to be admitted in the hospital.
Yes.
So a mild and a moderate infection is easily defined as it does not require hospitalization. They just have symptoms, and the oxygen saturation is above 94.
Okay, that's interesting. But last time we required more ventilators, and now the requirement is about oxygen cylinders. Why is that?
Yeah, so it again varies to vary. So the first wave, because the entire world was new to the virus,
Yeah.
the virus actually rapidly spread into the
So
body and
we
it caused
okay.
severe reactions, and that's the reason why many patients required ventilators. This time, I'm not saying it's not serious, but there is a very, very tiny element of herd immunity which seeped into the population. So they are getting affected, they are requiring oxygen, but as a matter of fact, ventilator requirement is also very, very high. The whole
Yeah.
problem with the statistics, what we get in India, is that they're very dissipated.
Yes, that's what.
So sometimes they might not be accurate as well.
Yes.
So yes, it is definitely the second wave is no less than the first wave, and as a matter of fact, the second wave severity and the infectivity is kind of more than the first, I can say.
First wave. Okay. So
Yeah.
definitely, and why is the second wave more severe than the first wave?
Yeah, as for
The
obvious
virus is
reasons. First
mutated.
of all, first of all, the people were not like, really, the people were not really, worried about the second wave. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is the virus itself mutated a lot.
Okay.
So
That's
the
another.
evolution of the virus says that it mutated itself so as to, escape the medications or escape the natural immune responses of the body, or many such confounding factors. So yeah, because of the mutations and the carelessness of both, yes, it is definitely more potent, I can say.
Okay. Also, last time you've seen that a lot of younger individuals are like little less this thing, but
Less
now they're all
affected.
worried because is it true that the
Yeah.
younger
So
individuals are also getting affected?
this can be attributed to the mutation, because earlier when the virus entered everyone, it found easy to enter the old people because their immune
But
responses were
now it is.
pretty low.
Yeah.
Whereas now the virus has realized that it definitely can attack everyone because it's mutated itself, and it's affecting each and every age group. And surprisingly and unfortunately, this time even the pediatric age group is affected. So even the
Yeah.
children are being affected with COVID, whereas in the first wave we've observed the children were very less affected.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Coming to the treatment part, last time we've seen that there was some recovery and improvement with the dexamethasone. So
Yeah.
how does the dexamethasone work, and
Yeah.
how is it right now in the second wave?
It's the most important question of this entire talk.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that.
I should have kept it at the last, is it?
No, that's fine. So thing is, dexamethasone is a steroid. So what it does is it basically decreases your immune responses. So what happens in COVID is when COVID attacks you, the COVID goes into your body and your body starts producing attacking cells against the COVID, which are called antibodies.
Yeah.
And such antibodies can cause a cascade of reactions called the inflammatory reactions, which are very detrimental to the body, and they can cause a lot of adverse effects like, the pneumonias and the ventilator requirement, all these things. So the cheapest and the best solution to all this is dexamethasone, which is a steroid which is very cheaply available.
And easily available.
Yeah, it's easily available. It's very cheap as well. So
Exactly.
dexamethasone, according to the world studies, has proven that it has mortality benefit. So what is mortality benefit? So for example, you all know what malaria is. So malaria killed a lot of people before chloroquine and artesunate were invented. Once chloroquine and artesunate were discovered and launched into the population,
The mortality.
literally the number of deaths have gone down. That
Yes.
means that these drugs have mortality benefit. So dexamethasone is one of the only drug which in the entire world which has proven to have mortality benefit.
Okay.
So no other drugs. Tocilizumab to an extent has some mortality benefit, but other than dexamethasone, no other drug has potent mortality benefit. So
Okay.
dexamethasone is a miracle cure. It is a wonder drug. But what kind of patients should
Yeah, I
dexamethasone
was
be
coming
given
to
is
that.
also a
Yeah.
very, very, very important question.
What
So
type of
according to
patient and
the
what time also is important, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So according to the world research, I'm not talking about my own personal experience. I'm not talking about my own practice or what. I'm just talking about what the world research has proven. The world research has proven that if you give dexamethasone a bit early, not I can say mild to moderate diseases who require only a very low level of supplemental oxygen, considerably a bit early in the disease will have maximum benefit.
The prognosis is
But
good.
if you give dexamethasone way past, it might or might not have benefit. But dexamethasone definitely has benefit given early in the disease. And in UK especially, we practice that we give dexamethasone only to patients who require oxygen.
Okay.
On a routine outpatient basis, to mild infections to moderate infections, we do not give dexamethasone. So we give
Okay.
dexamethasone only to patients who really require oxygen and hospitalization, and is not routinely given in the outpatient practice. In
Okay.
India, as obviously everyone is not very amenable to healthcare, there is a lot of socio-economic discrepancy. So a lot of people cannot, be given protocol-based medicine in India. That's not really possible and practical. So
Yeah.
yes, a lot of patients are being prescribed dexamethasone, and I really don't have a very big problem because they should be explained the side effects of dexamethasone at the same time. They should be given it in the right time, and yes, it is cheap and it's available.
Okay. And even for the second wave, even now, dexamethasone is life-saving. Is that what you're trying to say, right?
Yes, it is life-saving. It is the only life-saving drug, is what I'm trying to tell.
Okay. No, because you mentioned about drugs, there are other drugs, and especially now we're talking about some drugs like remdesivir and tocilizumab, which there's also black market which is open in India.
Yep.
Now, is remdesivir also life-saving, and how important is remdesivir in comparison with drugs like dexamethasone?
Good. Okay, so coming to your question, this is a very, very important part of this topic. Remdesivir is not life-saving. Please remember, every one of you who are listening to this feed, and we're going to share this feed after the feed ends anyways, but please remember that there is a trial called the recovery trial which was done in the UK, which was a huge trial, which is a proper scientific research, where it has been proven that dexamethasone did show mortality benefit and remdesivir did not show mortality benefit.
Okay.
So what is remdesivir, and why are people actually prescribing remdesivir is the important question. So remdesivir is a drug. So basically we need to understand what the virus does. So the virus enters the body, it starts multiplying in the body. The multiplication is called replication. So this viral replication is causing a lot of effects in the body. So what remdesivir does is it acts on a molecular level and it inhibits this viral replication. So it does not help the virus to propagate itself. And it is definitely beneficial in a way, because remdesivir has shown good results in symptom control only. For example, a lot of patients will have a severe shortness of breath. They will have some fatigue. They will have some weakness.
Yeah.
And so remdesivir, in a way, even though there is not a mountain load of evidence to prove that, but still, whatever evidence is available to us, it proves that it has some symptom control. But please do not panic if you are not getting hold of remdesivir, especially in
Remdesivir,
India. Please do not
very
panic,
important.
because remdesivir will not save your life. It will never save your life.
So that
Probably
is given
it'll
along
cut-
with the treatment. Yeah. It's not life-saving.
Yeah, it is not life-saving. Even given along with dexamethasone, they have trialed
It's not
that
life-
as well.
Yeah.
Dexamethasone and remdesivir. Dexamethasone alone has worked better than dexamethasone and remdesivir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so remdesivir definitely is useful. I'm not saying it is a crime to prescribe it, but it can be given in a very, very mild to moderate early stage of the disease, where
Yeah.
because once the virus enters the body, it starts multiplying. So
To
what's the
reduce the
point?
replication, yeah.
What's the point in giving remdesivir after 10 days of infection where it's already
Correct.
multiplied?
Correct.
Yeah, so give remdesivir early to prevent symptoms, but please do not give the patient remdesivir saying that it is not life-saving. So that is,
Okay.
and the same holds good with convalescent plasma as well.
Yeah, I'm coming to
So
that. So yeah,
yeah,
what
so
about
convalescent plasma is, again, you see Instagram, you see Facebook, you see wherever, you keep getting this forward saying needed urgently convalescent plasma.
Yeah.
Needed
Every day we keep
urgently.
getting that.
No,
Yeah,
I
know, yeah.
totally agree with the animosity and the anxiety what the patient's family is going through. I'm not denying that at
Yeah.
all, and
Yeah.
I totally understand their emotion as well. But the resources which go into creating plasma, the resources which go into collecting a donor, collecting plasma and transfusing is a hell lot compared to the benefits of plasma.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is plasma? So plasma is nothing but you catch hold of a patient who has recovered from COVID, take blood from him, filter that blood, take away all the negative and the bad effects of that blood, and transfuse it to a COVID positive
COVID patient.
affected patient. That is called plasma. So all of this, it's not easy. Go to a shop, buy dexamethasone, take it. That's easy. But
Yeah.
not all this. This is causing immense distress to the patient's family, immense distress to the entire healthcare system, because
Getting plasma also.
oh,
Is not
it's
easy.
yeah.
It's not,
This is
exactly.
this is the reason why, because
Exactly. Yeah.
the amount of plasma being given, the amount of remdesivir being given is so high that it's created a major shortage.
Focus also shifted towards remdesivir and plasma.
Yes,
But
that is what I'm
plasma,
surprised to know.
Is it life saving? Is it
No,
life saving?
that's what I'm coming
That's
to.
also not life saving.
Even in the recovery trials, they have trialed the plasma, convalescent plasma as well. Even convalescent plasma has reduced hospital stay, has reduced a bit of symptoms, but it has not caused any mortality benefit.
That's interesting.
So this is not my own words. It's available on Google. So anyone who's actually interested to read about it, there are numerous things published. You can go to Google, type mortality benefit remdesivir, type mortality benefit dexamethasone, and this convalescent plasma. So I'm sure, I'm very sure that it's the kind of panic which is being created is very disturbing and distressing.
That's a very interesting point, because actually the past few weeks, if you see, our focus has completely shifted towards plasma and remdesivir.
Yes. That's the reason why I have requested you to arrange this talk.
Actually, thanks for taking the initiative. Because of you, I've taken the initiative and started COVID talks again now.
Yeah.
Okay, so another drug, tocilizumab. What about
Yeah.
that?
So what is tocilizumab? So we need to understand what the drug is. So it was actually, so as I told you, when COVID enters the body, it causes a cascade of reactions which are called immune-mediated reactions.
Yeah.
So tocilizumab and those immune-mediated reactions, actually, the body actually produces all these immune cells to protect the body. But unfortunately, because of the level of the number of cells and the number of these chemicals which are being produced in the body, most of the times they cause more harm than good. I'm talking about the body's response itself. So this immune-mediated, it's called a cytokine storm. So these cytokine storm and immune-mediated reactions can cause severe adverse effects to the body.
Correct.
So this tocilizumab is given to prevent that cascade and so as to protect the body from itself.
Okay.
But we need to understand the fact that tocilizumab is a highly potent drug, and especially in a country like India, where tuberculosis is rampant, tocilizumab is known to reactivate hidden tuberculosis. So if a patient has tuberculosis which is hidden, it can come out because of tocilizumab. But again, everything said and done, after dexamethasone, the best drug which is available is tocilizumab. But it should be reserved in very special sets of patients. It should not be given in every patient. So the patients in which we give tocilizumab is rapidly deteriorating patients, because in this rapid deterioration means that the patient is having a cascade of chemical reactions in his body. So to prevent that chemical reactions, we give tocilizumab. So it's an extremely expensive drug, and it's not easily available. And I understand that rapidly deteriorating patients, intensive care, ICU, critical care patients require tocilizumab. But still,
it's reserved for those patients.
Yes, it is reserved for very specific set of patients. So we should be careful in that as well. But again, as I told you, in India, the entire paradigm of practice is completely different compared to the entire world, because it's a fact that my friends who are actually practicing in India are being forced by a lot of patients to prescribe tocilizumab and remdesivir and all those things. So yes.
Okay. Now you spoke about the treatment also. The timing of the treatment is very important. So when does a patient require remdesivir? When does it require? I mean, like what day of the infection? From the day of the first symptom?
It's extremely difficult to predict that, but I can say that I can exactly tell you one thing. If the patient has mild to moderate disease, if the patient is admitted in a hospital requiring oxygen, but not very critically ill, but the first week of illness, remdesivir can be given to reduce the hospital stay and to to enable symptom control. Dexamethasone definitely should be given. And tocilizumab is usually reserved for, again, when the patient is rapidly, it can be day 1 or day 2 when the patient is rapidly deteriorating. It can be day 7 or day 8 where the patient is rapidly deteriorating. So it is reserved, and it is the choice of the treating doctor at that moment to give that drug.
So, but these are not over-the-counter drugs. You have to get admitted, and you have to
Yes,
go to
yes,
the physician,
definitely,
only then it has to be this thing.
definitely.
So, also we've seen that last year we've seen a lot of patients were getting treated at home isolation only, but now we're seeing a lot of admissions and a lot of people are having to go to the hospital.
Yes.
Why is that, and how do we know when to stay at home, when to go to the hospital?
Yeah, that's a very, 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 very good question. So there is actually, you take the United Kingdom, you take the United States of America or any other country,
Yeah.
they have a specific criteria on basis of which we admit a patient in the hospital.
Okay.
So what the global criteria is that if the patient is requiring oxygen, point number one, that's
yeah.
given. We have to admit them. Point number two, if the patients are very severe where they are unable to, the symptoms are severe where they are unable to cope at home, like
Okay.
severe shortness of breath where they are unable to complete a sentence, severe chest tightness where the
these are-
patient is unable
yeah.
to, control his or her symptoms, and the chest tightness is getting way out of control. Third thing is if it's affecting the central nervous system, like for example, the patient is getting very weak, cannot get up, the patient is drowsy, the patient is confused. So these three things, I would say, if the patient's mental status is not good, for example, the patient is unconscious, drowsy, or confused, if the patient is severely breathless where he cannot even complete a full sentence, three is when the patient requires oxygen. So these three are the criteria with which we admit a patient in the hospital. The rest of the conditions where there is absolutely no requirement of oxygen and the symptoms can be controlled at home, home isolation is the best.
Okay. Also, you're talking about oxygen now. How do we monitor? We all nowadays everybody has. Yeah.
Fine.
Nowadays, I think everyone has a pulse ox at home. So how do we monitor oxygen saturation at home?
Yeah. So before we go into this, there's a very, very important topic called happy hypoxemia, which everyone needs to know. So everyone has a pulse oximeter at home. So you just measure your pulse oximeter. If you have COVID, you don't need to measure this if you don't have COVID, or it actually creates a lot of panic sometimes.
I know. Yeah.
So if you have a COVID infection, or if you are in contact with someone who has COVID infection, any oxygen saturation above 94 is safe. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
94 and above, it's safe. You don't worry. In India, the cutoff is 94, whereas in UK we practice 92. Anything above 92 is fine in UK if it's COVID. So if it's above 94, it's absolutely safe. And there is a very, very beautiful, easily done test called the 6-minute walk test.
Okay.
So 6-minute walk test says that you walk in your home for 6 minutes continuously, measure your oxygen before and after. If there is no major fall below 94, it's okay. You don't have to worry.
Oh, that's nice.
But if there is a major fall, because on exertion, the body requires oxygen more.
Correct.
So sometimes the oxygen might fall down. In a normal, healthy individual with normal lungs, even a 6-minute walk test will not decrease the oxygen much. Whereas a COVID-affected individual or any individual with a pre-existing lung condition who has a COVID, he might have this, he might find this beneficial of doing a 6-minute walk test.
Okay, that's nice. That's something I didn't know. Okay, now I think now everyone, we think that it's a wrong time to catch cold because if we catch cold, we think it's COVID. So how do we differentiate a common cold with a COVID infection?
You cannot. Unfortunately, you cannot.
Okay.
So basically, COVID is such a weird illness that the first wave had a specific set of symptoms, and the second wave is coming with a specific set of symptoms. As you might see, more of a lot of conjunctivitis is being seen in COVID nowadays.
Actually, we've seen a lot of eye infections nowadays.
Yeah. So it's very, very difficult to differentiate between a common cold and COVID unless you get tested. But again, as you all know, the testing is also very, very rapid in India. Everybody is getting tested and all. And one more thing I would really want to put forth in this forum today is the requirement of CT scan.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to talk about that. Yeah. Please tell me.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm asking the question and telling the answer.
No,
so don't
please,
mind.
please. Yeah. Please. No, please.
So coming to the CT scan, when a patient needs a CT scan,
yes,
it is very, very important because what we observe is each and every one are getting CT scan irrespective of they're positive or not.
Yes.
So I'm trying to reiterate this issue over and over again. Please, there is no requirement of CT scan in all patients who are COVID positive.
Yeah.
Only in patients who have decreased oxygenation, who have severe symptoms, and who are in the hospital. They require a CT scan. All the patients do not require a CT scan because our body is equipped enough to handle a lot of things. So you might have some infection inside. You might have a mild to moderate infection inside, but still your lungs might be affected, but still you might not develop symptoms. Here, the 6-minute walk test and all come into picture. If your 6-minute walk test is good, your oxygen saturation is above 94%, you do not have to get a CT scan.
CT scan, man.
Yeah.
And also, some people who require a CT scan are not going forward to get a CT scan because they're scared of catching an infection in the hospital.
I think it's better than I think it's better not to get a CT scan than catching an infection in a lab. That's definitely there. Because CT scan, again, what a lot of people don't know is CT scan involves a lot of radiation, which is not good for the body. The radiation can cause varied spectrum of symptoms, like it can cause infertility, it can cause other cancers, it can cause any other things. So please do not get unnecessary exposure to radiation is my request.
Okay. Also, there are other tests like CRP, D-dimer. What about these tests? When do we go for those? So when you get an infection, first thing we need to go for is an RT-PCR test.
Yes.
What about the other blood tests that are required, like CRP, D-dimer, and the other tests?
So yes, so all these tests help to prognosticate the disease. That means that they help to tell how severe is the disease, but they do not exactly diagnose anything.
Okay.
So CRP is a test which is done and which is elevated in any infection irrespective of COVID.
Exactly.
If you even catch a common cold, your CRP will be high.
Exactly.
D-dimer is a test which is used to differentiate a blood clot and a not blood clot. So if the D-dimer is high, it means that there might be a risk or there might be a blood clot. But if D-dimer is, it need not be done in all patients is what I'm trying to tell you. But as a routine panel, it's better to be safe. So in India, it's very freely available and everyone is getting it done. I don't have any problem with that. I just have a problem with the CT scans being abused because there is no point in everybody getting exposed to radiation, is my opinion.
That is okay. So if you're suspecting a COVID infection, go for a RT-PCR, get a CRP, get D-dimer and the blood test. But CT scan is not required unless you have any chest symptoms.
What is a blood test? You're just giving blood and they're doing a test. If you have money, get it done. But getting exposed to that level of radiation is not healthy.
No, especially it's not required for everyone. That's what you're saying.
It's not. Definitely not.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think treatment part, most of it is covered. I want to talk about vaccination because let's talk about vaccination. So a lot of people are still not getting vaccinated. Initially, when the vaccine came out, a lot of people are not going, but now because of the fear, everyone is going forward and getting vaccinated. But there are still a lot of people who are still scared of getting vaccinated. So vaccination, can you tell us something about vaccination?
So what exactly do you want to do? Vaccination is a 2-hour topic.
What I want to know is, will vaccination help?
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So I will tell you my own example. I am obviously vaccinated. I got vaccinated here. I got my antibodies tested, and I'm sure maybe I had an infection because I got exposed to a lot of patients. And I had antibodies tested before the vaccine, and I had antibodies tested after the vaccine, and they were sky high after the vaccine. So yes, they do help.
Which vaccination did you take?
So in UK we were given Pfizer. I think in India, Covishield and Covaxin are available. But whatever, the thing is, the shortage of vaccine is also a very major issue now.
Exactly.
So I request to all of the population of India to please get vaccinated whenever possible. And yes, there is an element of worry about whether it's safe, whether it causes side effects. Let me tell you one thing, even paracetamol has side effects.
Exactly.
So any medication will have side effects.
Yeah.
There is no doubt in that. And there is a very famous saying that a good drug will have side effects.
Okay.
So yes, everybody please take vaccination. And yes, there is a very, very small percentage of side effect profile. But the bigger, you have to look at the bigger picture because. But one more thing, a lot of people think that getting vaccinated will protect you from COVID and you can remove your mask. That is wrong.
Yeah, that's another, please.
So what does vaccination do? So once you were given a vaccine, that vaccine is a part of COVID. It can be a protein part of the COVID, or it can be a molecular part of COVID, or any part of COVID. Yeah. So that part goes into your body and your body thinks that you have a COVID infection. So your body tries to produce the antibodies against it. So what happens is this antibody production, our body is very well equipped with a thing called memory cells, where your body will remember that you had this infection. So if you are actually getting a COVID infection after vaccination, your body's memory cells will recognize it and go fight it. So what happens? You can still get infected. Please don't take me wrong.
That is another thing.
This is a very, very important point. After vaccination also, you still can be infected, but the infection severity will be very, very, very less. You will still have mild to moderate infection. You can still be positive after a vaccine if you get infected, but it will save you from the life-threatening complications of COVID. The vaccine will protect you from ventilator. The vaccine will protect you from oxygen requirement. The vaccine will protect you from getting an NIV machine or whatever the serious complications are.
Yeah. And because that is another thing, because a lot of people are saying he's taken vaccination, but still he's getting COVID infection.
Yeah, he will get. So exactly. It is not a Brahmastram.
Exactly.
It will protect you from not getting very, very sick.
But keep your body prepared when you get
exactly. That is the right way to explain it. It'll keep your body ready for a severe infection. So please get vaccinated, and whatever vaccine is available, go ahead with this, because both the two vaccines available in India both have good efficacy profiles. There is a very little statistically insignificant aberration between both the vaccines. But yes, whatever vaccine is available, kindly take it. And there are only two groups of people who probably should not take the vaccine, if you ask me.
Yeah, please tell us about that.
In US and UK, even the pregnant women and breastfeeding women are also taking the vaccine. In India, the last 3 days have been a revelation, because a lot of studies are coming in that vaccine can be given in pregnant women as well. But please, if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, please consult your gynecologist. Your gynecologist will be the correct person to answer that question. The other two sets of people who should not take the vaccine is if the person is below 18 years of age.
Yeah.
And the second thing is if the person has an active COVID infection.
Okay. So that is so if a person is having active COVID infection, after how many days post-infection can he take the vaccine?
So there is a lot of study going on that. They say 28 days.
28 days
post-infection. Yeah, post-infection recovery 28 days is what they say. The few studies says 3 to 4 weeks is the basic guideline what we follow. So at least wait for 3 to 4 weeks after resolution of your symptoms, and you can go ahead with your vaccination. But if you're under 18, please don't take the vaccine. And if you're presently having a COVID infection and you're positive, please don't take the vaccine.
Okay, there are some questions if you have any lung infection, or if there's any if you're having any heart problem, kidney problem, can you take vaccination?
Any problem except COVID, please take the infection. Please take the vaccine. A lung infection, cancer, patients having cancer treatment, any other thing, any other condition, asthma, COPD, whatever you say, whatever condition is there, I just read a question, a paralysis patient. Yes, they can take. There is no harm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Also, like a lot of questions I've been getting in the last few days about which one to take, Covaxin or Covishield. I think you answered that, but what do you recommend? Is there anything or anything?
To our given scenario, I can say one thing: whatever is available, take it.
Exactly. If you're getting a chance to get a vaccine, please do get vaccinated. That's the most important.
Yes, please get vaccinated, because the vaccination drive should come from within. So please don't believe these WhatsApp forwards that vaccination has some sort of tracking technology or all these conspiracy theories, as you know. That is not true, because I being a healthcare professional who believes in science and believes in scientific research, I have taken the 2 doses of vaccine. I have made my parents who are elders, who are weak, I have made them take the vaccine. So please go ahead and take the vaccine. So an important question which I just said: what happens if you don't take the second dose? That's a very wrong thing. You should take the second dose.
That's okay. Another thing, if your immunity is low, can we take vaccine? I think.
In what conditions? That's what I'm trying to tell you. If your immunity is low, you are the first one taking the vaccine. If your immunity is low, you should be the first one taking the vaccine, because you are more vulnerable towards the infection.
Yeah. And what about steam inhalation during the other side?
Okay, so
even if you're not COVID positive, can we do steam inhalation every day, or should we do?
So there is no harm. Definitely, there is no harm. So as long as there is no harm, I would not mind it. But once a COVID positive, the steam will not kill the COVID infection.
Okay.
So So what kind of patients are actually helped with the steam inhalation is patients who have a nose block issue since childhood, have a nose issue, have sinus issues. If they take steam, these passages are cleared. So it'll be it's a symptomatic relief, nothing more than that.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, another thing is after taking the first vaccine, before the second dose, we got COVID infection. So when do we take the booster dose?
You have to avoid it till 28 days. If you have a second dose, yes. That is at least the guideline followed here. But again, each country, as on basis of its population, launches its own guidelines. So you can go ahead and read the Health Authority of India guidelines, and then you can know.
Okay. Also, we've been getting like the role of blood, like they've been giving ecosprin nowadays for the treatment protocols. So, what is the role of blood thinners and tablet ivermectin also has been given? So, what are the roles of these for the COVID
So
population?
yes, it's actually mentioned in the guideline by Health Authority of India that mild to
Yes.
moderate infections are given. But
Yeah.
in the UK we don't use ivermectin because there is no proven benefit. Ivermectin in a lab in a petri dish has proven to inhibit the replication of the virus.
Okay.
But if you give it to a person, there is no benefit, or there are no studies which prove that it is helpful. The second
Okay.
point is blood thinners. My answer is absolute no. If the
Okay.
patient is COVID positive, if the patient does not have any blood clots anywhere, as a precaution, taking blood thinners is the most foolish thing anyone can do because it can cause very, very, very severe side effects. You might bleed out from somewhere and die. So you should be very, very, very careful while taking blood thinners.
So,
So unless until there is a qualified doctor recommends a blood thinner to you on basis of an evidence of a blood clot or an anticipation of a blood clot, please take it. Please follow what your family physician or whoever is treating you is advising you. But
yes.
on your own basis, please don't take blood thinners. They are not safe.
Yeah. So, I think D-dimer is useful in such conditions. Get a D-dimer done if a D-dimer is
Yes,
elevated, but
yes.
again,
In a way,
the idea.
yeah, you're right. In a way that if the D-dimer is extremely high, that means that you're susceptible to blood clots.
But again,
But
your
only
physician will
then,
guide you. Please don't take
Advait,
it on
only
your own.
then,
Yeah.
even though your D-dimer is high, unless your doctor prescribes, you should not take it.
Exactly. That's what. So, wait for your
Yeah.
physician's this thing and then. Okay.
Yes, yes.
And now, a
Please
lot of
follow
talks
whatever your
about.
doctor says to you.
Yeah, no, a lot of talks about Covishield causing blood clots. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so if a patient is already on antiplatelets or anticoagulants, is it okay to take Covishield?
Yes, absolutely. There is no
Okay.
contraindication to take. There is no there is nothing against people who are on blood thinners to take.
Yeah.
When the first guideline came, they said that people on blood thinners should be careful. But they have done research of them in the past 1 year, so they said that yeah, everyone can take. But again, there might be sporadic reports of patients having blood clots, having headaches, having a lot of adverse effects. But on basis of these sporadic reports, you cannot, take it for
Take
granted
drugs.
that it will
Okay.
definitely cause some effect or not.
Yeah. Okay, another, can we be vaccinated less than 18? No, the answer is no. Is this going to be an yearly vaccine like the flu vaccine?
I don't
That's
know.
interesting
It should
question.
be.
We don't know that.
I'm not the policy maker here. Yeah.
Okay, another question. Sir, after getting the first dose of vaccine, people are getting fever, body pains. How to overcome of it? I think.
If you take a flu jab as well, you will get. If you take a normal flu vaccine also, there are very, very common side effects. So what all the side effects you can observe? You can see injection site pain, injection site swelling. Someone says the video is stuck. Is it stuck? Everyone,
I'm not
everyone
sure.
able to hear?
My videos, I can hear you. I hope.
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you as well.
Okay, you can continue. It's fine.
Okay. So where was I? So yeah. What were we discussing before this?
You were talking about the booster jab, this thing, like
Yeah.
the
So
vaccine.
yeah, the side effects of COVID
Side
vaccine.
effects,
So I myself had when I took the first time I had high fever for 1 day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've taken paracetamol. It's gone. So yeah, you can have fever, you can have body pains, you can have weakness, you can have headaches. All of these are very common effects of any vaccine, not only COVID vaccine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like how to boost immunity during these times, like zinc over tablets and like
Yeah, so yeah,
vitamins?
it is well documented that giving antioxidants and multivitamins are known to boost immunity. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
But if you ask me on a scientific level, eat healthy, try to exercise, do your routine things, try to stay fit mentally and physically. That will automatically boost your immunity.
Yeah.
No drug will, like really cause that immunity to go up or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. There's some questions about CT. I think we've covered that already. Okay. These are my personal questions.
Yes.
Okay. When can we expect a decline in cases? Is it the peak or the peak is not reached yet?
In India, we are touching the peak as of now, if you ask me.
Okay.
So we should expect at least a dip in the coming 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3, I'm at least expect a bit of dip, but India has not reached its peak yet. So I would say everyone to maintain all the protocols for at least 2 more months, 2 or 3 more months, you can say. So please wear a mask. And I wanted to ask you because you are a surgeon, and I know from how many years you've been wearing masks. So we, as physicians, we don't wear masks much. So
Yeah.
if possible, and if you have the time, can you just educate everyone to how to wear a mask and what are the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, definitely. I think right now we have like two different kinds of masks. One, we have a disposable mask, and then we have a fabric cloth mask. So disposable mask, obviously, it has to be disposed. It has to be worn only once, and then you discard it. And a fabric mask is something that you can wash it and you can reuse it, and that is something that you can wash it along with your other clothes. Now, I have a mask I can just show you. So just make sure that when you're wearing the mask, don't touch this part, the main part of the mask. Just hold this part, and wear it like this. And before and after using the mask, make sure that you're cleaning your hands. That is very important. And again, when you're removing of the mask, make sure that you don't touch the center part of the mask. You just remove it like this, and then you discard it immediately. So that is important. And a lot of queries, a lot of things about double mask. Yes, double mask is definitely more beneficial than a single mask. And we get a lot of masks with vents, and that is something that we don't recommend. Because again, vents can let the virus particles outside. So if you're getting a mask, an N95 mask with a vent, please don't use that. N95 mask is definitely, it's way superior than other masks. But yeah. So
yeah, but to actually summarize what Advait told, the one thing what I observe is people keep touching it. Please don't touch your front surface of the mask.
Like
Please do not touch the front surface of the mask. And can you tell us, if in a COVID positive patient with eye symptoms, what are the basic things you need to do? Like what are the at least home remedies of how to take care of your eyes?
So if you're getting, so conjunctivitis is not something that you have to go to the hospital immediately, unless it is sight-threatening, unless you feel like your vision has come down. If there's inflammation in the eyes, your vision has come down, only then you can visit your doctor. These things can be done over the video. You can do a video consultation with the doctors, and doctors can guide you over the phone. If it's a conjunctivitis, normally patients complain of redness, they complain of watering, and they complain of discharge in the eyes, where you have your eyelids are stuck to each other. So you have difficulty opening your eyes in the morning. So these are the signs of conjunctivitis. And if any conjunctivitis, you can call up, you can do a video consultation with the doctor. Only if required, the doctor will call you to your hospital, and then we give the treatments. Treatment will be just topical, that is only no tablets. We just give eye drops to reduce infection. And any normal conjunctivitis gets subsided within a week to 2 weeks, so nothing to worry about. So it's basically a symptomatic treatment, nothing additional has to be given this one. And again, like you said, it's difficult to know if a conjunctivitis is because of COVID infection or this thing. So if a patient with conjunctivitis is coming to our hospital, we normally see it in a different room altogether. We don't mingle with the other this thing. So I go to that room, I see the patient, then I discard this thing. So that is important. So
excellent, yeah. So I just want to summarize the entire talk in 5 points or 5 or 6 points.
Please.
First point comprises of 3 elements. Please wear a mask. Please stay at home. Please follow social distancing and wash your hands regularly. That's the first thing I want to tell you. Second thing is please get vaccinated. It's very, very important that the vaccination not only helps you, but even your family and your loved ones. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
Point number 3, please do not get HRCT scans until recommended by a doctor.
That's a very useful point you made.
Please do not get exposed to radiation. Point number 4, please do not panic if you don't get a remdesivir, tocilizumab or plasma. They are not life-saving. They will help you. They are recommended, but only to a certain extent. Please don't panic if you are unable to get tocilizumab or remdesivir or plasma for your loved ones. Please.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So when if you're tested COVID positive, when can you donate a plasma?
They say 2 weeks. They say 2 weeks. Yeah, it all depends again, but they all depends on the immune response and all. But they say at least 2 to 3 weeks is what we need to wait.
Okay, all right. One more question, which is again my question. Obviously, we're not done with the second wave, but can we expect a third wave?
It all depends on how intelligent we are, probably. So yes, I would like to. This is. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or pedantic here, but
yeah.
COVID is going to stay with us. COVID is not going anywhere, but the severity will definitely come down. So COVID will be another flu. So in 1918, when Spanish flu hit us, it wiped out most of the European population. But after that, after vaccination, again, vaccination saved everyone there.
Yeah.
So please get vaccinated, and I think COVID is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be yet another flu. Because we have swine flu, we have the common flu, now this is another flu. So, yeah, I think it's not going to go anywhere. It's too strong.
So that's an important point. So vaccination is going to save, and I think getting vaccinated is the key over here. So once you
Yes.
get vaccinated, definitely the number of cases also will be this thing.
Yes.
Vaccination along with herd immunity, which will develop eventually. So I think that is important.
Vaccination itself propagates herd immunity anyways.
Yeah.
So because once a large group of people are vaccinated,
Hmm.
the virus just goes around there and the virus has nowhere else to go. So the virus will die down there.
Okay. All right. We've been getting a series of questions about steam inhalation. Please tell us about steam inhalation. There are videos going viral about avoiding steam inhalation. So can you tell us something about
That's what
that?
I'm trying to tell you. There is no harm in trying steam inhalation in a non-COVID patient. But if you're already COVID, there is no role of steam inhalation.
Okay, so if you're COVID, this thing, but again, if you're having cold and if you have a nose block, this thing, will a steam inhalation help this thing?
There is
Just like
nothing.
common.
There's no harm. There's no harm, Advait, because
Okay, there's no
what
harm.
does it do? You can add some Vicks
Just
or
dilate.
Amlitagen in it and take it. It'll just
Yes.
clear your passages, but it definitely does not cause any life. It's better than taking this blood thinners and all the other things anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you can take COVID. You can take.
Yeah, you can take it provided you have some symptoms, but if you're frankly COVID positive and you're taking steam to kill COVID, that's not recommended.
It's
Yeah.
not going to help. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Siddharth? If you've missed anything, if I've missed anything, I'm not sure.
I don't know because I think the main summary what I wanted to give you guys I've given. So we should that's an excellent question. I forgot. So how to increase oxygen levels?
Oxygen
So
levels.
this is a very important question. I think we have 10 minutes to go, so I think we
No,
can
please,
cover
please.
that then.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
So the Indian culture always spoke about pranayam, which is one of the best things proven. And you can go to YouTube and search for something called Anulam Vinulam pranayam, which is the basic form of pranayam, which increases your expansion in the lungs. It's very good. So practice pranayam. Point number 2, there is an excellent maneuver called proning. Proning is lying on your stomach. If you lie on your stomach, it's called proning. So what happens is if you lie on your stomach. So when you lie flat on your back, the lungs on your back are not exposed and not opened much. When you lie they're called alveoli, which help in gas exchange. They come up. So once you lie flat and do deep breathing exercises, your entire lung expands overall. That can improve the oxygen saturation. But if your oxygen saturation is going below 94, 92 and you're having symptoms, please don't try this at home. Please go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But if you in general want to, improve your lung capacity, just lie on your tummy and practice these. They're very good. So you can go to YouTube and see the benefits of proning.
Yeah.
You can go to YouTube and search for the benefits of Anulam Viloom Pranayam. If you do these two things, I think it's a very good thing.
Actually, recently there have been a couple of videos where they put the pulse ox to your finger and they've done pranayama and they check the saturation.
Yes,
level.
they have done proning actually. They have done
Yeah,
proning.
proning.
The proning actually
Yeah.
showed that it increased. Even in hospitals, as in the ICU, if the patient is very sick and the oxygen is not going enough even through the ventilator, we prone the patient. We put the patient on the stomach and give the ventilatory support so that to increase the oxygenation. So proning is it's a scientific thing. It is not a humbug.
Okay. Another question: medication to take when you're in home isolation. Again, that depends upon what.
Protocol based. In UK in the first and the second wave both, we have not recommended any drug on outpatient. Just paracetamol if you have fever, antihistamine if you have cold. That's it. And eat healthy and Excellent question. Is Apple Watch oxygen saturation levels reliable? I think they are doing a study on that, and I would not entirely recommend it, but it gives you an indicator at least.
Okay.
It gives you an indication, but I will trust the hospital or the proper scientific pulse oximeter. Yeah.
Okay. What about the diet, nutrition, and this thing? To take
Eat healthy. There is no restriction in COVID. Eat healthy, eat solids, whatever is tolerated by you. If you're not nauseous, you can take in solid food. You can take in solid food.
Okay, and something to reduce the rate of CRP, SGOT, and SGPT.
Those are all like it all depends from person to person, and these are all your body's responses to COVID. So once your COVID is coming down, if you're a healthy individual before the infection, they will also take care. Please don't fall behind numbers and get worried. Leave the number game to the doctor. The doctor will worry about the number game. As patients, you need not worry about the number game.
Okay. Also to reduce the fear and anxiety, because we've seen so much of news and WhatsApp and everywhere, people are dying, they're not getting hospital beds, and the fear is getting amongst us.
That's the main reason why I wanted to tell everyone is yes, hospital beds are important. You have to go, but at home or at the hospitals where remdesivir or plasma is unavailable, the panic
worry
and the
about it.
distress is increasing for the,
Yeah.
and I feel sorry for all the patients who are infected, and because especially non-doctors, families who are infected, they are
Yeah.
very, 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 very depressed because they are unable to get remdesivir and plasma. So yes.
I know that is something. This thing. Okay, another thing is we have from Dr. Gibran, your take on oxygen concentration machines. I think there's been a lot of lack of oxygen cylinders outside, and a lot of.
That's the reason why concentrators have come in. If there is no lag, the concentrators will not come in.
Yeah.
So
What is the role of
yeah,
that?
oxygen, dexamethasone are the only two things I say. Nothing else.
Yeah. So what is it like? Can we purchase the concentration machines that are available?
If you are, if you really need it, yes.
Okay.
If you think you cannot find a hospital bed and the patient requires oxygen, and you
Then
don't
it
get
is.
oxygen cylinders, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Because they produce oxygen, so yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
Any-
Great. And okay, will there be a permanent fibrosis of lungs post-infection? I think that is.
It is
possible,
varied.
right?
It is varied. Like a lot of there are actually studies going on. It's too early to actually say tell that.
Yeah. Okay. How can we cope with our mental health? I think you already
Yeah.
answered
So
that.
pranayam, meditation, and please talk to someone. Please don't
Yeah.
keep everything within yourself and get distressed. Please,
Yeah.
please talk to anyone. As in, you don't have to talk to a health professional.
Yeah.
If possible, talk to a mental health professional, which is excellent. But
Yeah.
please talk to your loved ones. Please talk to your friends. Share your feelings. Don't let them pile up in your head, because stress is the main reason why everything is happening beyond everything else. I know COVID is hitting us hard, but our stress is hitting us harder. So please talk to someone whenever you.
And
Yeah.
maybe avoid watching news channels and social media.
Please don't
and,
become Google doctors. That is what I can say. So Google and these WhatsApp forwards are actually misguiding. I get a lot of WhatsApp forwards every day, which are utter. For example, whether he's a doctor or not, but
Sorry. Yeah.
he posted that nebulizer is enough and is no need of oxygen. That is wrong. So please don't believe everything and everything which comes in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So again, I would like to thank Dr. Advait for actually inviting me to this talk show, and this is the need of the hour is what I felt, because the amount of phone calls I receive every day are very, very disheartening, and people are really, really, really panicking. So yes, you should panic, but I would urge everyone to stay at home whenever possible, and please follow all the protocols which are in place.
No, I think I need to thank you, Dr. Siddharth. It was really an eye-opener, and I think you've reduced a lot of fear and anxiety amongst us. And if you guys have any questions, anything related to COVID infection, please DM Dr. Siddharth, and he will get back to you in a day's time. So please don't fear. And of course, the role of remdesivir and tocilizumab, like you said, plasma, these really have no role in the mortality. So don't worry about it. And thank you so much, Dr. Siddharth. And
thank you too. Thank you so much
saving
too.
the session, and please, guys, any questions unanswered, please DM Dr. Siddharth. He'll get back to you.
Yes, whenever I have time, yeah, definitely I will. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I've answered most of the questions, but yeah, I'll try to.
Yeah, I think we covered most of the questions, but yes, thank you so much, Dr. Siddharth.
Yeah, thank you, and please take care of all of you and stay safe. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.